Good afternoon, one and all. You all are again welcome to the session 3, day 4 of this 5-day FTP. The expert for the session 3 is Dr. Seema Sharma, Associate Professor, MRS PTU Bathinda. Let me first introduce Dr. Sharma with you all. Dr. Seema Sharma, working as Associate Professor with MRS PTU Bathinda. She did her graduation from DAV College, Amritsar in 1989, post-graduation from Khalsa College, Amritsar in 1992, and PhD from GNDU, Amritsar in 1998. She joined Beyond College of Engineering and Technology, Gurdaspur in 1998 as a regular lecturer, and then she joined GZS-CCT in August 2001. She has published 17 research papers in international journals, and she has attended and presented 15 papers in national and international level conferences. She is currently guiding 4 students for their PhD degree, out of which 2 are on completion. Good afternoon, ma'am. I, Sunita Kotwal, Assistant Professor on behalf of Civil Engineering Department, GZS CCT MR, welcome you to the session 3, 4th day of this 5-day FTP being organized by Civil Engineering Department under the guidance of Atal Academy. Now I request Dr. Sharma to please start with her lecture.
Thank you, Sunita, for the wonderful introduction. Now, one thing I want to ask is the background of the participants, that from which discipline they are, so that rather I have kept my presentation very simple, keeping in mind that all would not be from the chemistry background, but out of curiosity, I want to know.
Ma'am, participants from all the different fields.
Okay, fine.
And this is the national level program, so from the other states too.
Okay, fine.
From the south, and also the participants have joined with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So, good afternoon, participants. I hope I'll be able to justify with the topic which I have been given, that is the waste management of the chemicals. Let me share my presentation with you so that we may continue with the presentation. So let me allow to presentation. Actually, शुरू होने से पहले, before the start of the lecture, I was just thinking that with God's blessing, I hope that internet connectivity would not be hampered in between, because whenever it is most needed, only then it is gone actually. So I was praying to the God that internet connectivity should be there whenever the lecture would be there. I hope it would be so. My prayer would be listened by the God. So the presentation is now opened. So I hope everybody is able to see it. Let me put it on the full slideshow mode so that the presentation is more clear to all. So the topic is the management of the chemical waste. But before we go into the waste management, I first of all want to give you a brief on the management of the chemicals first, because this is very much needed in my view. So we'll quickly look into the nature of the chemicals, and then we'll move on to the waste management. So these are the contents of my presentation. So let us move further. So before I move on to the facts about the chemicals or the nature of the chemicals, so I want to share some facts in the Indian scenario. So you can see whenever we say that chemical waste, so the first thing which comes in our mind is the hazardous waste. So hazardous waste is no different than that of the chemical waste, because I have come to know from the organizers that you have already had a lecture on the hazardous waste management and also on the biohazardous waste management. So chemical waste is no different from the hazardous waste. एक recent study जो है that was done by the Associated Chambers of Commerce of India and the PricewaterhouseCoopers, that the hazardous waste are piling up at the rate of 2 to 5% per year, which is very high. ये मैं Indian scenario की बात कर रही हूँ. I'm talking about the Indian scenario. Approximately 10 to 15% of the industrialized waste is hazardous. All the chemicals which are hazardous. So 10 to 15% chemicals which are not properly managed, at least in India. The Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Changes defines hazardous waste as a waste which is due to its physical, chemical or biological composition is likely to harm the health or environment. So as far as the definition is concerned, so the ministry says that whatever chemical, whatever thing, whatever object, it harms the environment as well as the health of the flora as well as fauna. So that is the hazardous waste. So there are many industries all over the world, also in India, that which are producing the hazardous waste, and they are producing it in considerable quantity. So they are petrochemical industry, pharmaceuticals, chemical industry, fertilizers industry, and in general engineering produce. So engineering से related industries हैं, industries which are related to the engineering, they also produce hazardous waste, or considerable amount they produce the hazardous waste. The hazardous waste is the worst type of waste because it it affects the health of the human beings, the animals, as well as it affects the environment very badly, because they are very harmful to us. Unfortunately, in India, large industries as well as the small scale industries, they barely pay any attention in treating the hazardous waste, and they simply throw it either in the water bodies or they throw it just like that on the open grounds, and even the government or the supervisory bodies, they don't care about it, which is very alarming actually in India. Now, if I talk about the hazardous waste in India, so the share of out of that hazardous waste, some of the waste is recyclable, and other is non-recyclable waste. So as you can see, the share of the non-recyclable hazardous waste is 46%, and the recyclable waste is 54%. So there is a great scope of the recyclation, where the government needs to design certain policies. It needs to formulate certain policies which are very less in our country. On recyclation, the least attention is paid, and we know for recyclation, the collection of the products that is done by the rag pickers simply, which never know about the hazardousness of that particular product. So this sector is actually having a great potential, and the government needs to do a lot of work in this sector. Now coming to the chemicals. Now we know that the potential hazards of chemicals that we use, they are potentially hazardous. Not all the chemicals, but many of the chemicals, they are hazardous. So we need to tackle those chemicals accordingly, and then we have to plan accordingly our work. We have to plan our work accordingly. So every chemical has its own set of properties. For example, some are reactive, some are corrosive, and some are the flammable, and therefore they require these special there are special procedures. Excuse me, there is certain problem. So let me first of all see that what is the problem, as the technician is telling me that there is some problem. Come. Camera is on.
Ma'am, actually camera is on, but it is showing your
okay,
right.
fine. Is it right now?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Okay, so moving on to the chemicals. So as I was discussing that every chemical has its own set of properties. Some are reactive, some are flammable, some are having the health hazards, some are corrosive. So every chemical, every product that needs to be having that needs a different disposal procedure. So as the properties are different, so the disposal procedures, they are different. So one has to be very careful while working with the chemicals. So as the properties are different, so the safety measures are must. So whenever we use the chemicals, the cautionary notices which are written on the bottles, they need to be read very carefully, because ignoring those cautionary notices, it may invite the lot of danger for the users. So what those cautionary notices about the chemicals they say, so let us understand them. So the first rule of safety while working in the lab is the whenever we are using chemical, the first safety rule is read the label first. So it is not the safety rule for only for the chemicals, it is the safety rule for all the products which we use in household or wherever we use the products. So this is the first safety rule, that you are to read the label first. So that would give you quite idea about the nature of the chemical, the nature of the product, that what kind of product it is and how you are to work with this chemical. So this is must. So never ever ignore the label of the chemical. Then if you are working with the chemical, then you need to understand the language of chemicals. So this is little bit, you may be surprised that is there any language of the chemicals? Yes, chemicals have language. So that language is of course in the form of some color coding, or in the terms of certain, or in the form of certain signs and symbols. So one must understand the language of the chemicals, means what color coding that chemical, the color coding, what is saying about that chemical, and what signs and symbols are there on the bottle of the chemical, and what they see. Now let us see what this color coding and the signs they say. So this is known as the hazard identification system about the chemicals. Now generally, because there are so many chemicals, so many properties, each and every product, it has a separate property, so it is very difficult to have the separate color code for the separate chemicals. So they have been grouped broadly into the 4 categories. The 4 categories, they are mentioned in, you can see on the screen. The red color, it represents the flammability of the chemical. The white color, it represents the corrosivity of the chemical. The blue color, it represents the toxicity of the chemical, means what is the effect of that chemical on the health, toxicity. Yellow color, that represents the reactivity of the chemical. Now further, these 4 colors, they are marked on the severity scale. Severity scale, it varies from 0 to 4. So what that severity scale is, you can see here in this case. So hazard identification system mein, so as the blue color represents the health, that is the toxicity, the red color represents the flammability of the chemical, the yellow color, it represents the reactivity of the chemical, and the white color, it represents the special characteristic of the chemical. That is why it is written as personal protection. And as far as the severity scale is concerned, that is from 0 to 4, you can see 4 means that chemical is severely hazard, and 3 means it is seriously hazard, 2 is moderately hazardous, 1 is slightly hazardous, and 0 is minimally hazardous chemical. So whenever you understand this, so it is very easy to understand the label of the chemical. So I have one, so this is the same thing. Generally in the chemicals, the hazard identification system is represented in the form of this diamond shaped colors. For example, here in this case, you can see on the 3 on the blue diamond, it is written 3. So 3 means that the chemical is having the health hazard, it is toxic, and this is seriously hazardous. And 2 on the red means the chemical is flammable and its flammability is moderate. Zero on yellow means sorry, the chemical is reactive and its reactivity is minimal, means it's least reactive. And white, if on the white diamond it is written nothing, means so there are no special hazard of this particular chemical. So there's a chemical. So this is isopropanol. I have taken this bottle, especially this chemical, because nowadays this is very common. You all are very much familiar with the sanitizer which we use on our hands. So the sanitizer is having most of the higher component in that mixture is the isopropanol. The isopropanol, this is an alcohol, and you can see the hazard identification system of isopropanol. See, on blue it is written 1, on red it is written 3, on yellow it is 0, and it is white. On white it is written nothing, means there is no I mean, it is not radioactive, it is not oxidizer, it is not having any personal health related problems. So you can also see here, if you can see my cursor, there is another pictogram. So this pictogram is representing that this product is highly flammable. As you can see, there is 3 on the red diamond. So this 3 red diamond means this is seriously hazardous as far as the flammability of this chemical is concerned. So you'll also understand more about the hazard communication standard pictogram. This is the standard pictogram. So there are certain pictograms which are depicted on the bottle of the chemicals. So like this, if you see this pictogram, so this means this is having great health hazard, like it may be carcinogenic, it may be mutagenic, it may be having certain reproductive toxicity, and like that you can read that. Similarly, this is the symbol for the flammability. And when in the morning I was coming to the institute, I saw the one tanker which was carrying the liquid petroleum product. You might have seen that also many a times. So that was carrying the liquid petroleum product, and that was bearing a symbol like this. That is the flammability symbol. So it was bearing the symbol of, if I can show with the cursor. So this symbol was there, and so let me select the pen if I can. So it is not there. So, sorry, it is not visible to me. Anyway, so there was a pictogram like this, and it was bearing this diamond. Half of the diamond was having this signal, that is the flammability, and the half of the diamond was carrying the figure 3. It means this is flammable, and on the severity scale, its severity is 3, means this is seriously hazardous. So you can also see all these things whenever we come in contact with such products. So similarly, you can see this is having its another meaning. So this pictogram is having its own meaning. So whenever a product is explosive, so you may see this pictogram. So whenever a product is corrosive, you may see this pictogram. So when you see the cylinders which are filled with gases, so you may see this pictogram. Similarly, this pictogram, which means this is an oxidizer. So these two pictograms, this pictogram and these pictogram, they have a very slight difference, but you can see a circle in between, in the center, but here the circle is not there. So the two are confusing, but this is flammability, of course, and this is oxidizer. Similarly, another one pictogram, and these are some more pictograms here. If you see this cross, this means the particular compound that is irritating, and this everybody knows this is the signal for the radioactive compound. And this is, of course, toxicity, and this is the gas pollution, and there are these are the pictograms. So whenever you understand the pictograms as well as the hazard identification of the chemicals, now you know very much about the chemicals. Now we'll quickly look into the safe management of the chemicals, and then we'll move on to the chemical waste. So whenever we talk about the chemicals, the first thing which comes in our mind is the industry. We never perceive the chemistry laboratory of colleges or the universities as the place where the hazardous emergencies they may occur. So there are many and many incidents where you come across many challenges in the chemistry laboratory which we have faced many times. So I have taken the chemistry laboratory as an industry for the chemical waste management. So safety is again the first rule and the foremost rule in the chemistry laboratory as well, because we deal with many chemicals. So, so with the name of the chemicals, why the industry comes in our mind is due to the reason perhaps, because whenever we talk about the industry, we talk about the chemicals in bulk, right? And whenever we talk about the chemistry laboratory of a university or a college, then the chemicals are in small quantity, but mind it that the small quantity of chemicals may also cause a hazard in the chemistry laboratory. So I'll share one or two incident in the chemistry laboratory which happened, and accident occurred due to the mismanagement of certain chemicals. So, so one may say, what is the need of the safety? Now it is a very fool question actually. So whenever you are adopting the safety measurements, so it basically you are protecting yourself, your co-workers. At the same time, you are preserving your work as well. Otherwise, if the accident would happen, your work would be gone with that accident. So you are also preserving your work, which is very important. Whosoever is doing PhD, that he or she may understand that what is the importance of the work whenever we are doing PhD. Then of course lab cleaners and other visitors also, which may not directly relate, which may not be directly interrelated with the chemistry lab, but other visitors. So they may be there, and if you are adopting the safety measures, then you are saving the others as well. So, so let us look quickly into what are the do's and don'ts in the chemistry lab. So, never ever allow the outsiders to go in the area where the actual experiments are going on. The emergency exit in the chemistry lab is must, and it should not be blocked at all. So sometimes we say कि पिछले 10 सालों से कोई accident नहीं हुआ है. So what we do, we keep the heavy load of substances or heavy loaded equipment in the way which goes to the exit, emergency exit. So it should not be like that. So emergency may come at any time. So they never be ever be blocked. Emergency exits should never be blocked, and they never be locked. Because whenever the emergency would be there, so if it is locked, then there is no use of the emergency exit. So one very important thing is emergency exits, they should be opened by pushing the door, not be pulling the door. Okay, so see, whenever you are confused, there is an emergency in the chemistry lab, you would never think about pulling the door. You would simply run, and you would simply push into the door and would go outside the lab. So this is very important. This is very small thing, but this is very important. So so whenever you are working in the lab, safety attires and equipments are must. So this word PPE is very much common these days. This is personal protective equipment. So in this pandemic time, in Corona time, you might have heard the word PPE, but this PPE is not only mandatory for the persons who are attending the COVID patients. So this is also important when you are working in the chemistry lab. So in chemistry lab, personal protective equipment, what is there? There are gloves, there are safety goggles, there is apron, and of course the closed toe shoes and the long pants. So these are the safety attire. And the apron, it should be made up of a quite thick material. It should not be a fancy one. It should be made up of a thick material, so which can resist the accident actually. So in chemistry lab, you need to wear the personal protective equipment in the wet lab. Wet lab means where are the experiments where you need the washing and then again cleaning and then reusing the apparatus. So that is known as the wet lab in chemistry. So area where the reagents are stored and the rooms where the analytical work is being done, at that places the personal protective equipment is required. Then, so when I talk about the PPE, then the glove is the very important thing, which is the part of the safety attire, and it is not just any glove you take and you use it in the chemistry lab. So each material of the glove, it has a separate property and it is used for the separate purposes. As you can see on your screen, there are different types of gloves which are there. So they are used for the different purposes in the chemistry lab. So while selecting a pair of gloves, the two features they are taken into consideration. One is the reactivity of the, or the stability of the material of the glove. Means the glove which we are using against a particular chemical. So whenever it would come in contact with that particular chemical, so whether it would be stable or not, it would react with that chemical or not. So that is the first feature. And the second feature, while selecting the glove, we take into consideration is the permeation of the material of the glove. So whether it would allow the seepage of the liquid chemical or the gaseous chemical through the pores of the material or not. So that is the second characteristic which is taken into consideration. So you can see the 7 types of gloves which we generally use in the lab, and in this table I have tried to sum up the properties of the different materials and for what particular chemical they are recommended for and for what particular substance they are not recommended for. And some of them are very costly and some of them are cheap. For example, I take the first two types, that is latex and nitrile. They are the simply rubbery material. Latex is the glove which you generally see doctors wear while examining a patient. Nitrile are also the gloves which generally the food industry or even the medical industry people, they use it, and they are very thin. You can say the thickness of the material is very thin. They are mostly the disposable kind of gloves. Then come the neoprene gloves, PVC, PVA, butyl gloves. So they have depending upon their characteristics, they can be used for a particular kind of chemical. So you can see the chemicals out of this Viton, you can see at the 7th number, they are having the great property of the resistance towards the heat as well as the chemical, but they are very costly. They are the most expensive, made up of the most expensive material. So they are not used in the chemical industry or in the labs. They are generally used in the aerospace industry or for the aromatic compounds. So see, there are other do's and don'ts of the chemistry lab. So there should be emergency shower and eye wash. It should be readily available. You see, whenever you work in the lab, you find no chemical safer than water in the labs. As if there are chemical spills on your apron or on your hand or on your foot, so go quickly to the emergency shower or the eye wash. So whenever there is spill in the eyes, so you have to simply wash it with a lot of water so that you can reduce the risk of that chemical. Similarly, fire blankets, first aid kits, they should be readily available. So they are must in the chemistry lab. Then another important thing is material safety data sheets. What these are? Material safety data sheets are the sheets which has each and every characteristic, each and every property of the particular chemical listed in that sheet. So there should be these material safety data sheets, they should be available at all the time in the chemistry lab, properly maintained home, and they should be accessible to all. Now the question is, who provides the material safety data sheets? These are provided by the manufacturer of that particular chemical. So whosoever company you are opting for purchasing a chemical, so that company is liable to give you the material safety data sheet. So you have right to take the material safety data sheet from that particular supplier, that company. These are certain good laboratory practices. Baal khule na ho. You ensure that before leaving the lab, everything is safe. it is just like working in the chemistry lab is just working in the in a good manner in the kitchen. So ladies, they understand it well, that whenever you work in the kitchen, so your trial is that you keep the place tidy so that the work is done smoothly. And whenever you finish your task, say in the night or in the morning, when you finish your task and go for your work, and you make sure that the waste is cleared from the kitchen top, so that next time when you come and you work in the kitchen, the waste should not be there lying on the kitchen top. So similar is the case in case of the lab. So the working table, it should be clear. Whenever you finish your task, simply clear the waste, what is there on the table. So drinking, dining should not be there in the chemistry lab. Smoking, especially in the area where storage of chemicals is there, and especially where the flammable chemicals are there. So if there is refrigerator in your lab, then there should not be any food item in the refrigerator if it is used for the storing of the chemicals. And no loose hair in the no open shoes in the chemistry lab, so it should be closed shoes. So these are certain good laboratory practices which avoids the hazards in the chemistry lab to great extent. Then whenever we work in the chemistry lab, glassware is must. So broken glassware should either be repaired or it is discarded on the designated place. So there has to be a separate bin which should be there in the chemistry lab, designated especially for the discarded glassware, and it should be clearly labeled. The labeling is must, and it should be in easy language so that even the cleaner in your lab can understand that this particular bin is for the glassware. There should not be any high form English so that the cleaner should not understand it. So the language should be such that, or any symbol or pictogram which would represent that there is glassware in that particular bin. Then so whenever you are to perform certain experiments which give lot of fumes in the lab, so it is always advisable to perform those experiments in the fume hood. So that is to be performed in the fume hood. So this is the correct way of performing the fume hood. This is the glass window. So you are to see the experiment, working of the experiment through this glass window, and you are to put your hands in the working or the countertop through this opening, and then the fume would go away through the duct to the outside. So this is the right way of using the fume hood. Then another important thing in the lab is the storage of chemicals. So this is very important. You see, the highly toxic and carcinogenic chemicals, they must be placed under lock and key, so that whenever there is needed, so it has to be issued in the supervisory mode, so that the head of the lab, he should know that whoever is taking that chemical and what amount of chemical is being used, and then he has to record all these things on the stock register. Then solvents must be stored in well-ventilated cabinets or explosion-proof cabinets, because most of the organic solvents, they are flammable. So they has to be stored in the well-ventilated cabinet so that you can avoid the fire accidents to the least extent. You can avoid them. The area of the storage of the flammable chemicals should be cool, well-ventilated, and away from the ignition sources. Then incompatible liquids should not be stored together. So this is also important. It is not just like that, okay, you have to keep the containers just in one storage rack and then your job is over. So you have to see that particular chemical, whether it is compatible with its neighboring chemical or not. So this is very important, because if you don't take care of this, so the chemicals, they may react with each other in case of the spillage, of course. So there may be a accident. So by accident, some of the chemical, if it is spilled over, then the two may react, and you never know what would happen. So I have given a few examples of the chemicals which are not compatible with their counterparts. Say acetic acid is not compatible with nitric acid, perchloric acid, peroxides, and permanganates. Similarly, sulfuric acid is not compatible with nitric acid. So it means that these chemicals, they should not be stored with these chemicals. This is what we mean by incompatibility. Similarly, ammonia, you can see it is not compatible with chlorine, bromine, iodine, hydrogen chloride, calcium hydrochloride, and so on. Only these are few examples. Now, coming to the laboratory chemical waste management. The first and foremost rule about the management is to segregate all the waste. So, while segregating the chemical waste, guess has no place, assumption has no place. So, never ever guess and never ever assume about any chemical, about the property of any chemical. So, you are to exactly find the property, what is the property of that particular chemical, and you are to segregate accordingly. So there has to be separate container for each category of the waste. For example, I have given here an example that corrosive waste, it should not be stored in the metallic container. It has to be stored in the non-metallic container. Otherwise, the corrosive material, it corrode the material, and if it would be kept unattended for a month or so, then the container would be no more, and that chemical that would be spilled on the table, and it may cause many accidents. Then glass and plastic wastes, they has to be placed separately. If any sharp thing is there in the lab, so it has to be packed properly, and then it is to be discarded, so as to avoid any accident, any pricking or puncturing to the workers, sanitary workers, because it is the sanitary workers who collect the garbage and then they dispose at the designated places. So we also have to take care of the safety of the sanitary workers as well. Now, if there is any wastage in the lab which contains the PCB, what is PCB? This is polychlorinated biphenyls. They are very hazardous, very harmful. So, if there is any waste which contains these polychlorinated biphenyls, they must be placed in the waste dumps which are specially designated for the PCBs. Then mixing of the different types of wastes, that should not be done. So, because if you mix the two types of the waste, then the purpose of the segregation, that would be lost. So, the first rule is the segregation. Now, see, in India, the disposal of the laboratory chemicals, there are no clear guidelines for the disposal of the laboratory chemicals. But in foreign countries, of course, these countries, they have very clear-cut guidelines, and whenever the chemical is to be disposed, then the person who is using these chemicals, he or she has to fill such kind of hazardous waste proforma. So, and this proforma, it has to be labeled, it has to be pasted on the container in which that waste has been dumped. So only then, so whenever this information is provided to the company who is taking away the waste from the labs, so the person, he comes to know that what particular kind of waste it is containing, and whether it is, so he would know whether so wherever whatever company is dealing with this waste, so that company would know that whether the components in this waste, they are recyclable or they are non-recyclable. If they are recyclable, then to which company they are to supply these waste, and if they are non-recyclable, then how they are to be dumped. So this is very important. You can see here it is written that no abbreviations, no formulas, no structure. So whenever you are writing the information about your wastage, so it is advisable that you should not write any abbreviation, you should not write any formula, you should not write any structure of the chemical, because a chemistry person who understands the chemistry would understand that what formula it is and what structure it is. But a person who is dealing with this, the company or the workers which are involved in this work, they never know what is the abbreviation of that particular compound, what is the formula of that particular compound, and what is the structure. So they would rely on, and one important thing is whatever information is being given, so that has to be true, because the worker or the company, so that would rely on the information which is provided by the user. So they never know that you are, or the user is hiding something from that company. So if some hiding of the information is there, then the accidents they may be there, because if you are hiding an information from the then the company may not be knowing about the severity of that chemical and in what way it would be hazardous. So that would invite the accidents. Now the question is why segregation. We have also discussed in earlier, because if you mix the two, or you mix the components, so there may be unwanted chemical reaction, of course, because chemicals are very active, because you are using the chemicals in 100% purity. So you may invite the chemical reactions. So hence the accidents may be there. As in the previous slide, I was telling you that the user has to give the correct information. If you hide the information, so that simply would harm the sanitary workers and the workers in the segregation station, of course. Now, as I told you that the waste in the laboratory, it has to be segregated. Now, these are the categories of the chemicals which are there. So there are 14 categories, as I was not able to write it on the one slide. So 7 categories I have mentioned in one slide, and the 7 other categories I have mentioned in the next slide. So these are the categories. So I'll read quickly for you. So on the rectangular shape, I have written the category of the waste, and on the right side of that rectangular box, I have written the chemicals which come under this category. So the first is organic waste phenol, second is organic waste halogenated, third is organic waste corrosive, fourth is organic waste non-halogenated plus water if it is mixed with water. Organic waste non-halogenated, when it is not mixed with water, is a separate category. No? Corrosive waste acid is the another category. Corrosive waste inorganic acid mixtures, so that is another category. The another category is corrosive waste alkali. So you are not to mix the alkali and the base. Both are corrosive in nature, but you are to keep them in these separate containers. Corrosive waste alkali mixture, then waste oil, reactive waste, waste oxidizer, inorganic waste, then hazardous waste others. So whatever chemical is not covered in the 13 categories which I have read quickly for you, so would come in the 14 category, that is the hazardous waste. About the hazardous waste, you earlier had a full-fledged lecture, I have come to know from the organizer. So you can see the examples on the right side of the rectangular shapes. So these are the 14 categories. So in foreign countries where this is a well-organized sector, in India, all of us, we know that the wastage disposal is not a very organized sector. So we know in India, our government is very efficient in framing the policies, but the government is very the execution with the disposal of the chemical waste from the chemistry laboratories. At the end of this presentation, I'll share you an incident, rather accident, which occurred due to the mismanagement of the waste which came from a chemistry laboratory of the Delhi University. So I'll share an incident with you. These are some other types of waste. Radioactive waste. So that is not covered in the chemical waste category. Of course, these are chemicals because you cannot have anything which is not chemical. Actually, everything you use, our body, everything we use from the morning we start our day, and the moment we go to the bed, everything we use, we come across in our daily routine is the chemical actually. So we cannot keep each and everything in the chemical category. There are certain things which are not covered as far as the definition is concerned. We do not keep them all them in the chemical category. So radioactive waste is that kind of waste. So this is kept as a separate waste. So the rules for the disposal of the radioactive waste, they are body, that is AERB. Here I would like to share that the nuclear waste in our country, most of the radioactive waste, it comes from the nuclear plants, and the nuclear waste is disposed through the closed fuel option. What is this option actually? Here, most of the used fuel is actually recycled. So whenever the recycling of the fuel, used fuel is taking place, so only 2 to 3% of the fuel is left as waste. Other is again converted into the usable fuel, and that 2 to 3% of the waste, so that is disposed as the geological option. Geological option means it is either thrown on the open grounds, which is specially lined for this purpose, or they are submerged under the ground at certain depth. They are submerged. So that is the geological disposal system. Then highly hazardous waste, you have already had a lecture. Biohazardous waste, you already had a lecture. PCB waste, here I'll take 1 or 2 minutes for polychlorinated biphenyl waste. Now this is highly toxic chemical. That is why, if you remember in the previous slides, I told you that the PCB waste, it should not be mixed with any other type of the chemical waste. So there has to be a separate container for the PCB waste, that is polychlorinated biphenyl waste. It is actually a mixture of the compounds. There are more than 60 chemicals which come under this category. 60, there are approximately 200 chemicals which come in this category, and they are highly toxic. These chemicals, they persist in environment for decades, and after occurring in environment for decades, these chemicals, they then are converted into they are degraded into the components which are not hazardous, but that takes too much of time, maybe 10, 20, 30 years. So considering its toxicity, US government banned this chemical in 1977. This is used in many of the products. This is used as earlier, before 1977. This was used as the transformer oil in most of the places due to its dielectric fluid property. It was used in this. It was used in many more things. It was used. So this is used as plasticizers in paints. So considering its, or looking into its toxicity, the United States government banned this its manufacturing in 1977 in that country. But in India, it is used extensively because there are no clear guidelines for the manufacture as well as the usage of the PCB. So we are using this chemical extensively, and this chemical, it travels through air, through water, to the longer distances, and scientists, they have found the traces of PCB even in glaciers. So you can see the movability of this chemical. So this is very harmful, and since United States government banned this chemical in 1977, but still now, till this day, this chemical is existing there due to the pre-1977 manufacturing. Now, disposal of the chemical waste. So I have already told you that no clear guidelines for the chemical disposal are there. However, the guidelines for the hazardous waste management are there. Now the guidelines are there, but the execution is very poor in our country. in India the execution of many and many policies, not only the disposal rule of the hazardous waste, but other policies regarding other policies also. The execution is very poor in our country. The hazardous waste management rule 2000, now the rules which were formulated in 2016, that was the hazardous waste management. So they require that the state government should allocate the recycling shed for this particular purpose, because whenever waste has to be there, then there has to be certain shed where segregation work would take place, and from that place, after segregating that waste, the waste has to be transported to the place where it is to be recyclable or it is to be dumped. So the rule says that the state government has to allocate the recycling shed. Not only the allocation of the recycling shed, but the state government should ensure the proper registration of the waste, whatever is coming in that particular recycling shed. Then the skill development of the workers who are working there for the segregation or the then further processing of the waste. As the waste is hazardous, involves so many hazardous chemicals, so the workers, they need the special equipment for the processing. So that also becomes the duty of the state government. Then the payment of the workers who are engaged in the collection and then segregation and then the processing. So the payment also is the duty of the state government. Then it is also the duty of the state government that once the work is in progress, then the government is to monitor that to what extent that work is going on, whether the company to whom that tender is being given, whether that company is doing that job or not. So see, the rule says that the state government has so many responsibilities, but the state governments were not doing anything. I don't know the participants who are from different states of India. I don't know any one of you if knows there is any recycling shed for the hazardous waste in your state, and what kind of work is being done there. I'm doubtful. So then again, what is the major challenge? The major challenge is again the execution of the guidelines. Guidelines are there, but how to execute that? So that becomes the major challenge in our country. Then there is a rule which I want to give the special mention. After the Bhopal gas tragedy, which took place in 1984, the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Environment and Climate Change formulated a rule known as the manufacture, storage and import of the hazardous chemical rule. Now, as the words which are there in this rule, they talk about the manufacturing, they talk about the storage, and they talk about the import of the hazardous chemical. They do not talk about the wastage disposal. The rules, they do not talk about the wastage disposal. So that is why I told earlier that there are no clear guidelines about the disposal of the wastage. This regulation was first enacted in 1989 after the Bhopal gas tragedy. Everybody knew about that tragedy, by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. This was amended first time in 2001, and then it was amended second time in 2018. As per this rule, or as per this guidelines, there is a list of 672 chemicals which has been listed as the toxic and hazardous chemicals. So according to the guidelines of this rule, the manufacturer has the sole responsibility of preparing the safety data sheets. These are the same safety data sheets of which I was talking in the earlier, whenever I was talking about the good laboratory practices, or what are the do's and don'ts in the chemistry lab. So I told you about the material safety data sheets. So these material safety data sheets, they has to be provided and prepared by the manufacturer. So these are the safety data sheets. So then it is the responsibility of the manufacturer that he is to provide the training to its workers, because the manufacturer is dealing with the hazardous chemicals. So the training is must. the manufacturer has to identify the major accidents, that what are the particular places or what are the loopholes where or what are the incidents or what kind of accidents may happen. So he has to look into the possibility of the major accidents that can take place in that particular unit, and the manufacturer has to do the efforts to prevent such accidents. So it is the responsibility of, again, the manufacturer. Then manufacturer has to prepare the on-site emergency plan. Means, so whenever there is an emergency, what plan is there to avoid that incident or to protect the the workers, or to protect the people which are residing around that area. Then this last one is very important: adequate information to be given to the persons liable to be affected by the major accident. So whenever the major accident would happen, so what kind of major accident may happen in that particular industry? So the manufacturer, he has to make the people aware. What people I am talking about? The people who are residing the nearby area, who are not working in the chemical factory, who are not working in that particular factory, but they are affected indirectly by residing in the nearby area. So the manufacturer has to make aware the people who are residing in the nearby area. So this is very important, which is lacking actually. So whatever tragedies we see in India or in other places which took place, there the people who were residing in the nearby areas, they never knew that what kind of accident could happen in this factory, and they could not know, they do not know what preventive measures they have to take, what remedial measures they have to take. So this last one is very important. This is the responsibility of the manufacturer, that he has to make the people aware about this. Now, if an accident takes place, then he has to fill a pro forma, in which he has to give the information to the government regarding the notification of the major accident, that due to what reason the accident took place, what was the time, and what casualties took place, and all that things. The manufacturer needs to submit the safety audit reports regularly to the authority. If this is to be executed to the best level, then no accident would take place, because the safety audit is actually an affair which is the annual affair. So he has to submit this audit report on regular basis. But this is simply a paperwork in the industries. So that is why the major accidents they take place. Then another important thing is the authority, the government. It is to inspect the industrial activity at least once in a year, which is not done actually, because the corruption is very high in our country. So these two last points are very important. If this is to be done honestly, then many accidents they could be saved, they could be avoided. This was the chemical waste management. Then another small sector I have taken. This is not actually a small sector. This is wrong to say that this is a small sector. A very big sector it is, but the least care is given to this sector. That is the household hazardous waste management. Now, the hazardous waste is piling as the new products they are coming in the market. The hazardous waste out of the home products, so that is also piling with the great speed. So with the upcoming of the new products, the household hazardous waste is also increasing at a great pace. We hardly bother about the impact of these products on our family and the environment. We simply take the product and we use it and we throw it in the waste bins, which the municipality is taking care of, right? The discarded waste may contain many harmful and toxic chemicals that we know. We never segregate the chemicals. We never segregate the waste at a household to the extent that it could avoid the mixing of the toxic chemicals with the normal municipal waste, which municipality is collecting in all the cities in India. So if a product is carrying these cautionary messages on it, so it means that product is hazardous. So what cautionary messages it may carry? So they may be written as, you see, danger. There may be written a caution. There may be written warning, or or it may have these toxic or flammable or corrosive or reactive or poison. So if any of these things is there on the product which we are using, so it means that is hazardous. So that may be hazardous for our health, or that may be hazardous for the environment. So we had to be very careful. So I have tried to take the picture of some of the products at my place, from my home. See, the first one is the picture which I took from a toothpaste. See, so this symbol, we all know this is for the recyclable material. The 7 in this shows that this is made up of the polycarbonate, and this is recyclable. This symbol is again is for the recycling. This is a recyclable material. This was the picture I took from a cartridge of my office printer. So this is again, the material is recyclable, right? This is the perhaps this is the picture which I took from the normal whitener we take, we use in our offices. You know, whenever we do a mistake while writing, so we use a whitener on that writing. So it is that whitener. So it is also having a recyclable material. We never put those things that this is toothpaste, this is the material which is on the cartridge of the printer, and this is again a symbol which represents this is recyclable. We never bother that this is to be used, this is to be segregated or to be placed in the separate waste bin. We simply throw it in the peels of the vegetables or other things. Then this is the picture which I have taken from the deodorant which I use at our home. See, this is the flammability. This product is flammable, right? And this is the recyclable. This is the symbol which shows that the material is recyclable. Why this is recyclable? Because the can is made up of the metal. The can which we use for the deodorant, that is made up of metal, so it is recyclable. So this is the picture of the what we say, the mosquito repellent or the cockroach repellent, cockroach killer, the hit. This is the picture of the hit. So it is written poison over here. You can see this is poison. This is not only poison for the cockroaches, this is poison for us also. This is another side of the same product, the hit product. The company or the name of the product is hit, cockroach hit, right? So this is the flammable. This is flammable, right? And this is the Colleen. The product is Colleen, which we use for the cleaning of the glass. Everybody uses it in place for cleaning of the glass, and you see how big caution is written over here, right? So I have tried to gather some of the pictures to make you understand that in household also we are having the hazardous products. See, in 2016, a survey was done in Delhi by the Toxic Links. Yes, the company was Toxic Links. The survey, the outcome of the survey was that 80% of the houses, they have the hazardous products in their homes, and we also have the hazardous products in our homes. Now, with these products, who is the worst victim of these products? The women are the worst victim. The reason being, the most of the household chores or the responsibility of the household chores is taken over by the women, so they are the worst victim of these products. So we simply, whenever we buy a product, and if it is in excess, we simply throw it in the sink, or we throw it in the municipal waste. So we never bother that if we throw it in the sink, it would pollute the water. And if it is thrown in municipal waste, it would never be segregated at a proper place. It may harm the segregation worker and all these things. We never think about that. The dangers may not be immediately visible because some of the products they may not be flammable, they may not be reactive, but they may slowly they may go into the environment, they may go into the water stream, and they may pollute you directly or indirectly, pollute the environment directly, or they may harm you indirectly. The Municipal Solid Waste Management and the Management and Handling Rules 2000, they speak about the provision of the specially lined landfills for household waste. No doubt this rule speaks about the provision of the landfills, but what after the dump it is dumped in that landfill? What about that? What after that? After that, you know, in India, the segregation of the waste is done by the rag pickers. So there are no skilled people which segregate this waste. They simply, the rag pickers, they simply pick up the waste without knowing their reactivity or without knowing their hazardous nature. They simply pick them up and then throw it away. And wherever they are to sell them, they sell it. These hazardous waste or the household waste, it should not be mixed with the, it is same as it was in case of the chemical waste, should not be. So these are the examples of the hazardous waste which we use in our home, and they are listed in the hazardous category. So you can see a long list. These are only few products which I have mentioned over here. There is a long list which is hazardous. You know, in India, what is the system of the collection of the household waste? Gila kuda, sukka kuda, right? Na? Waste, wet waste and dry waste. Now, the dry waste means that this material is a material where we can find out some of the material which is recyclable, and the wet waste, which would be, of course, recyclable, but would be going to a factory which would convert this into manure or fertilizers or all these things. But we do not do our duty responsibly, and we simply mix the two kind of waste. In foreign countries, this kind of segregation is done. So this is a better and smart segregation of the waste. You can see there is a separate bin for the plastic waste, paper waste, glass waste, organic waste, and the metal waste. So the most dangerous waste over here is the organic waste. So here we need to have the workers which are skilled, so they take care of. There are companies which take care of this, and the segregation is done in a very organized manner. So this segregation of waste, whether it is chemical waste or household waste, is not at all an organized sector in India. Then these are some useful tips for the household hazardous waste management. So this you can do at least while you are putting your household waste in the dustbins. So this we can easily do it. So what you can do, you reduce the amount of hazardous waste that you purchase. उतनी ही amount खरीदें जितनी हमें ज़रूरत है. एक्स्ट्रा समटाइम्स हमें ये लालच हो जाता है, बड़ा पैक सस्ता मिलता है तो हम बड़ा पैक ले आते हैं, और वो बड़ा पैक जो है वो यूज नहीं होता सारा, एंड अल्टीमेटली उसकी शेल्फ लाइफ खत्म हो जाती है, एंड वी सिंपली थ्रो इट इन दी, आफ्टर 2 years 3 years we throw it in the dustbins. So we should cut down this practice. We should read the product label very carefully. Then if some safer alternatives are there, then we should choose the safer alternatives for a particular product if they are there. Then always store all your household chemicals in the protected and secure area. Then never mix the leftover products. Never burn or dump the hazardous waste on ground, because if you dump it on the ground, it would spoil the soil, and if you burn it, it would spoil the air. Do not dispose down the sink. If you dispose down the sink, it would pollute the water. So let us understand few things which are written on the products, what they say actually. Danger means, if it is written danger on a product, it means this is highly toxic. It may be highly flammable, it may be highly corrosive, it may be highly reactive. If it is written poison on a product, it means that product is highly toxic. If it is written warning on the product, it means that is moderately toxic. Yani on severity scale, this is having 2. Number is 2. If it is written toxic, so toxic means it may cause death, cancer, or birth defect, or any other kind of defect in the human beings. Flammable, it is very clear. Corrosive can cause serious damage to the skin. Wear gloves. If it is some of the products, it is written the wear gloves. For example, the toilet cleaners, there it is written wear gloves. So it means the product is corrosive and you need to take care of your skin. You need to take protection so that the skin and the product do not come in direct contact with each other. If it is written do not store near heat, so that means the product is flammable. If it is written use in well ventilated room, it means the product is giving you the toxic fumes and the substance is reactive and you need to take care of. So these are certain warnings and messages, cautionary notices which are written on the household products, which we generally ignore. We need to keep eye on those cautionary notices and understand it. So safe management of disposal of household waste management. Why it is to be done? Because it will be protecting you, your family, and of course environment, and it reduces the water pollution and the air pollution. Then at the end, I would like to discuss the 3 incidents, rather accident I would say, which happened. 2 of them happened recently and one is little older one. Now this is the Vizag gas leak tragedy, which I want to discuss with you. Everybody knows in May, perhaps 7th May 2020, when we were in lockdown, an accident happened in LG Polymer India, which is in Visakhapatnam, outskirts of Visakhapatnam rather. So a gas leaked in this factory, and that gas was styrene. So these are the very well-known pics which we saw on the WhatsApp, on the social media. So what happened as a result of the leakage? Now let me tell you what is styrene. Styrene is a chemical. At room temperature, this is liquid, oily liquid type. So this has to be stored. The storage condition for the styrene is say 17 to 20, 22 degrees centigrade. So it has to be stored under controlled conditions. If this temperature is not maintained for this particular chemical, now before I go into the detail that if it is not stored, what would happen? Now why styrene is there and where we use the styrene? This is used for this is actually monomer for many of the polymers. But we mix it with latex, we mix it with the many kind of rubbers, and many polymers are made with this, and then finally that product is used in the switches and many things. This product is used. So this is the monomer actually for making the polymers. So styrene is to be stored, I was telling you, is to be stored under the very controlled environment, and the temperature has to be taken care of. In case of the styrene, if it is not stored under the proper conditions, then it evaporates quickly. So that the same happened in case of the Visakhapatnam or the LG polymers. So in the lockdown, the factory was shut down, and there was more than 2,000 tons of the styrene monomer, which was kept unattended there. So होना ये चाहिए था कि even the जो unit, जो cooling unit है, इस particular storage, इस chemical की storage के लिए जो cooling unit है, उसको properly maintain किया जाना चाहिए था lockdown period में. But due to the lockdown, all the workers, they went away from the place, and even the manufacturer he did not took care of that. So due to the higher temperature, as it was very hot during those days, summary season was there. So the chilling unit was closed. So due to that, the monomer, it evaporated with very high speed in the air, and the people who resides in the nearby areas, so they had lot of problem. Now let me tell you, this styrene is a very harmful polymer, and just before the starting of your lecture, I found this on the internet. So this is the hazard identification of the styrene. You can see on flammability scale, this is having 3, that is, this is seriously hazardous as far as the flammability is concerned. This is 2 on the blue. It means this is moderately toxic as far as the health is concerned. And on yellow scale, this is on yellow color, this is 2. It means yellow stands for the reactivity. It is highly reactive. So the styrene, when it goes into the air, so it is metabolized in the human body as the styrene oxide. So styrene oxide is even more hazardous as compared to the styrene. So styrene was converted into the styrene oxide, and it metabolized in the body of the people who inhaled it, and as a result, many of the people, and you know, many of them were hospitalized, and as from the news I could see that 15 people, they were died due to this. So you see, with the mismanagement of the storage of the chemicals, how severe accident that took place. Then I would like to discuss another accident which took place in the August, perhaps, in Beirut, Lebanon explosion. So that took place due to the I would say the carelessness in the management or the storage of a chemical, and that was the ammonium nitrate. So ammonium nitrate otherwise is not explosive at all. Ammonium nitrate can be handled very easily, but if it decomposes, then the gases, they come out very quickly out of that reaction, that decomposition. Nitrogen gas, oxygen gas, water vapors, they are released very quickly, and they turn into the explosion. And after that, many other gases, nitrous oxide, nitrogen dioxide, many gases, they come out. So this accident was due to the storage of the ammonium nitrate. Ammonium nitrate is a very important or component in case of the fertilizers which are the rich source of nitrogen. So we use ammonium nitrate in the fertilizers, and 1/3 of the ammonium nitrate, it is also used as explosive along with the TNT for the mining industry. So this is also one of the component of the explosion which take place in case of the mining industry. So how that it is, the report says that 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate, it was stored without any special care in the port warehouse in the Lebanon, Beirut. It was stored without any care, and due to the high temperature, see, whenever the ammonium nitrate is pure, so it does not give the decomposition reaction is not at all initiated. But whenever the impurity is there, so the decomposition reaction is initiated very quickly, and that changed into the explosive. Now the question arises, from where that 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate came in that port. Actually, in 2013, a ship that came to that port, where the Russian crew was in that ship, the Russian crew was there. Basically, that ship was to go to the Mozambique. Here, that ship stopped for taking the delivery of more load, for taking the more delivery of the cargo. But there was certain dispute, legal dispute as far as the port fee was concerned. Then the crew members, they were arrested. Then you can say the dispute was not settled, and since 2013, then that product was unloaded. That ammonium nitrate which was there in that ship, it was unloaded, and the crew members, they were kept on board for at least 1 year. And after that, when no decision took place, then the crew members, they were released, and the ammonium nitrate, that was kept as such in the warehouse of the port. So no care was taken for that storage, and as a result, the explosion took place. And this was a very dangerous, very you can say the horrible explosion, which destroyed almost half of the city. More than 5,000 of people, they were hospitalized, and many death casualties took place. So this is the another incident where the mismanagement about the storage of the chemicals that happened, and as a result a big accident took place. That is why in the beginning of the presentation I told you about the management of the chemicals. So management of chemicals is very, so we should not take the chemicals in a light manner. Although ammonium nitrate is not at all explosive, but if you don't take care of this chemical, so it will show its color. So this is another, the last accident which I want to share with you. This is a accident which is known as the radiation leak accident in Mayapuri scrap market in Delhi. This happened in March 2010. So what was the incident actually? Actually, in Delhi University, in the chemistry department of the Delhi University, one gamma unit was there, which was procured in 1968 from Canada, and since 1979 it was not in use. So for the last, say, 20-25 years, it was lying unused in that department, and the department decided to sell this unit as a scrap in an auction. So that unit was sold to the scrappers, the persons who deal with the scrap. So the persons who deal with the scrap in the Mayapuri market. So that was sold to the people who were not knowing about the gamma unit. They were not knowing about the radiation and anything. So that was sold to them. So it was sold in February 2010. So after a month, they dismantled it. The persons who were dealing with they were in the scrap market, the shop owner. So they dismantled the unit. So that unit was having the cobalt 60 pencils. Cobalt 60 is the radioisotope of cobalt, which gives the gamma rays, the radiations, the radioactive rays. They are given out through the cobalt 60. So the source of radiation in that particular gamma unit was the cobalt 60. So and it was covered with the lead. I hope you know that the lead, it absorbs the radioactive radiations. So that is why, so whenever we have a radioactive source, that is covered with, or it is kept in the lead covering. So that pencil which was carrying the radiation source, that is cobalt 60, so that was covered with lead. So those people in the scrap market, they dismantled it, they uncovered that product. So cobalt 60, that was uncovered, and as a result of this, in that shop there were 5 people, and they had a severe nausea, or they were unconscious, and immediately they were admitted to the AIIMS hospital. And even not only those 5 people which were directly in contact with that cobalt 60, the people which were residing in that area, they were also having the breathing problem. So after that, then an investigation was there, that what was responsible for the breathing problem in that area. Then ultimately it was found that the radiation leak is there, and the radiation leak was so severe that out of those 5 persons, 1 died, and the 4 other who survived, they were given the severe life support system, and only then they could survive. Out of them, the skin was totally damaged. Some of the body parts, they had to be cut, and it was a severe accident. For that, the 6 professors of the chemistry department in Delhi University, they were charged for it. And see, this was an accident. This was the major incident in India, the major accident till date. This is the major accident which occurred in India due to the radioactive leakage. So you can see how the mismanagement of even the chemical waste in the chemistry laboratories, that can lead to the severe accident, or the accident which we even cannot assume. We never assume about those accidents. So this was the major accident which took place due to the mismanagement of the chemical waste of a chemistry laboratory in Delhi University in 2010. So with that, my presentation is over, and I like to thank you, and I welcome the questions and the queries if they are there.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. Ma'am, there are some questions in the chat box.
Yeah, I tried. Please share the questions.
Ji, ma'am. Professor K.N. Vidya is asking that what about the influence from labs? What about the effluents from laboratories?
So presently, I have told that there are no guidelines. So the laboratories, they are simply, if the waste is solid, that is simply thrown in the waste bins which are there in the laboratories, and if it is liquid, it is thrown in the sinks. So this is the common practice which is followed in India.
Okay, ma'am. Next question is from Professor Aruna.
Hello.
जी
Hello.
जी एकदम मैम जी प्लीज.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Actually, it's you have given a very useful information, as we are came from chemistry subject, and actually we don't know means that whatever information you have given in details. That is means today we come to know how it is useful, and how it will be beneficial for us. Ma'am, I have one question. Like you have covered the topic, your presentation on gloves, use of gloves.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello, ma'am.
Carry on.
Are you hearing? Okay. So that gloves are means for different purpose or for handling different type of chemicals. You have given that different types of gloves are there. Yes.
Right.
So, ma'am, my question is, like as in Corona, as a COVID situation, we have also provided with some gloves. Ma'am, that gloves are means can be we sanitize and use it.
Pardon,
Means that gloves can be reused again.
Which kind of glove?
Ma'am, those we are using in during COVID situation.
That is probably the latex gloves you're talking about.
Okay.
Latex gloves. So latex gloves are actually, madam, they are the disposable gloves.
Okay.
Because they are very cheap actually, so they are disposable gloves. So they are not to be reused again and again.
Okay, but pharmacy people they said that, ma'am, you can sanitize it and you can reuse for means 1 week. So that's why I asked you, ma'am.
It is the if you are not using it for the liquids, only then you can use it again and again after the sanitization. But
Okay.
if you are handling the solids like the food industry, you are handling the plates and all these things, then you can sanitize it and then you can use it again and again. But when you are working on the chemicals, then I don't suggest the reusing of those gloves.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am. Next question is from Professor Aruna Sudame. Is the Harpic sanitary product also toxic, or what is the alternative to it?
The alternative can be the homemade the sanitizers or the cleaning products. Like there are certain products I have seen on the social media only. that you use the peels of certain substances and keep them for at least month, and they are to be you can say let them decompose for a month, and then you can use that liquid for the cleaning of the tiles. So that is the home ec. That needs a lot of effort, so we never bother to do that. We don't have time for that actually.
जी जी मैम. Ma'am, next question is from Professor Kamalakar Nandkar. What precautions should be taken while handling peroxides?
Peroxides.
Peroxides.
Peroxides actually oxidizers. So you, whenever we are working on them, then the proper gloves they are to be worn, the safety goggles they are to be worn, and then the of course the lab apron it is to be worn. That is the only precaution which we can have, and if we can have the proper ventilated area whenever we are working on the peroxides, so that would be sufficient.
Okay, ma'am, next question is from Professor Sonal. Is there any way to collect the gases directly from landfill?
Landfills? Not, I don't know exactly what method can be there. That needs a study actually. Probably, I don't know that.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, next question is from Professor SK. Whether all radioactive substances release same amount of radiation or radioactivity per second in terms of dose, intensity, and amount, or different substances release different? Hello.
I could not hear the question, Sukhdeep, because your voice was not actually
Ma'am, I am
continuous.
I'm posting the question in the chat box, ma'am. Please.
Okay, fine. Let me see the question.
Right now, it is available.
The question is, all the radioactive substances release same amount radiation, radioactivity per second in terms of the dose, intensity, amount of different substances release different. No, they are different. So depending upon the half-life period of the compound, this amount varies. Some are more toxic, you can say the hazardous, some are less hazardous. Otherwise, there are many substances in our walls also which are emitting the radon particles, which are also radioactive, but that the concentration or intensity is very low.
Okay.
Should I take the next one? Whether all radioactive substances release same? No, this is the same
That's the
one.
same question. That's the same
Yes,
question.
yes.
Any other query from participants? Please, you can unmute your mic and ask directly to Dr. Seema Sharma ma'am. Okay, ma'am. I think questioning is done from the participants.
So thank you so much, ma'am, for sparing your valuable time and for sharing your innovative ideas and knowledge on the topic of management of chemicals and chemical waste. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much to you also for inviting me, for giving this opportunity to interact with the participants. Thank you so much.
So thanks to all the participants for the patience hearing. Now,
so may I go now? May I go?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So with this, we are at the closing of the 4th day of this 5-day FDP. Hopefully, we will again meet at tomorrow at 10 a.m. As I suppose you all have heard about the Kisan Amendment Bill. So there is some announcement. Yes. Yeah. So there is